If you've ever been in a position where you felt helpless, trapped, or without options, you certainly can relate to our next guest. Kelly Nielson shares her terrifying yet ultimately inspiring experience, and she shares her ordeal as she fled the country of Lebanon with her children. She's also the author of the book I'll Fly Away, which documents her whole entire ordeal. Welcome, Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
How did you get into Lebanon? How did you get there?
That's a really good question, and that's one that I often ask myself many times when I was in Beirut. It all began in college, where I was going to Idaho State University, and I met my ex-husband Ibrahim there. He was studying pharmacy, I was studying business. We met at an international festival, and we quickly fell in love. We started dating, and he told me he was from Lebanon, and I had no idea at that point where even Lebanon was. And then when he told me he was Muslim, my only point of reference in the early 80s was Lawrence of Arabia, so I got all caught up in the whirlwind of romance and all that.
So you had the initial courtship.
Yes.
You fell in love.
Yes.
And this was all here.
Yes, in Pocatello. And he quickly pushed marriage. So we eloped immediately, probably within 4 or 5 months of meeting each other. And my parents were really upset about it. And then 5 years later, we had our daughter Layla. And at this point, he was married in my church, and he agreed to raise my children Christian, because I'm Christian. But after I had Layla, he decided that he didn't want to raise her Christian, he wanted to raise her Muslim. In hindsight's 20/20 vision, and I realized that Muslims have to raise their children Muslims. And hindsight's also 20/20 vision. He was in such a hurry to marry me because he was in his last year, and his visa card was about to expire.
Did he have discussions about moving back to his country?
No, never. It was never even an issue. He came to America, he said he loved America. But
at what point did things begin to change?
Well, in medical school, he was finished with his medical degree, and then he was finishing up his residency, and there was an allegation from a female patient. And so it went to the medical board and all of this. And so they denied him his license because of the lawsuit, that the claims and stuff that she was making. So at this point, he became very angry at America, very angry at everybody else except himself. So he started complaining to his family who were overseas, and they told him to come over there and open up a pharmacy or become a doctor.
So this became a very quick decision with your children and your new husband?
Yes. And we were married at 13 years at that time. Well, he came to me and said, I want to move to Beirut and go over there. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not going over there to live. And he said, fine. He goes, I'm going to take Layla next month to go over to my country and visit my family. And I said, you're going to take Layla by yourself? And he said, yes. And I said, I didn't say anything at that point. He went to work the next morning. I got on the phone with the American Bureau of Consular Affairs, and I asked them what my options were to stop him from traveling with my daughter. And she said, does he have dual citizenship? And I said, yes, he does. And she said, there's no exit controls in America. He can travel with your daughters on a Lebanese passport, and there's nothing you can do about it.
So you ended up beginning a life in Lebanon?
Yes.
And how is that?
It was a downward spiral from the very beginning, but once we got over there, I wasn't allowed to drive. I wasn't allowed to work. I couldn't leave the family apartment building without a male chaperone. When I first went over there, I was expecting a hero's welcome from his family. I thought, I left my country, I left my family, and I was ostracized from the very beginning. And the biggest reason was because I didn't convert to Islam. This family started pressuring me to convert, and that didn't work. My poor daughter, Layla, he put her in Islamic school, and she was spit at, and she was bullied, and she was made fun of because she had an American mother.
So at some point, things began to fast forward and spiral out of control.
Yes.
And you realized, at what point did you have to flee?
Well, it was at the point when his mother started parading young female virgins in front of him, to marry, because they are allowed to marry 4 women. And also, it came to a head when he sat me down one day and he said, my family's not accepting you. You don't understand our ways. He goes, they don't accept you for 3 reasons. Number 1, you're American. Number 2, you're Christian. And number 3, you're not even Arabic.
So you decide at one point, I need to get out.
Yes.
This is a bad situation for myself, my children, my entire family. I need to go back to America. How did you flee?
It's a long story how I got out, honestly. There were many failed attempts. For women that want to get out, that are still in those situations, It's completely different than over here if you want to divorce your husband and leave, because we have basic rights here as women in America that we take for granted. Or under Sharia law in those countries, they don't have it. I mean, a man can have 4 wives without the others knowing about it. You can only have 1. They can have temporary pleasure marriages, which in my mind is prostitution. You can marry a woman for 1 hour and divorce her. But in Islam, it's a contract. That's where they pay you a dowry for the right to use you exclusively sexually. So it's a completely different concept. And if you want a divorce over there, the children always belong to the men.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your inspiring experience.
Well, thank you.
And where can we get a copy of your book, I'll Fly Away?
Well, now it's available everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, ebook, Nook, iBook. So.
Well, thank you for sharing just a little bit of your inspiring story, Kelly. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.